live stream that was a little okay, it was a lot serious. It was very serious. And I wanted to do something that's a little more levity, talking about games, upcoming things. So let's get into some discussions. So we have a lot that's up and coming that could be really, really exciting. One of them, if we want to start off, let's go ahead and talk about Insomniac's Marvel Wolverine. I feel it looks amazing. I will say this. The only thing that bothers me is they went for more of a kind of a linear movement. You have these sandbox areas that you can kind of move around and do a little bit, and you can go about progressing in different ways and stuff like that, which is cool. I'll give them that. And for that kind of a layout, that gives a little more freedom. And you can kind of go stealth or you can go really aggressive if you want, which is really cool. And I think overall the game looks really, really like amazing. The fighting, it feels like Wolverine. He's vicious, he's brutal, he's stabbing the crap out of people, dismembering them, and everything like that. And one of the things that I think was really cool that we got to see from some of the gameplay reveals and stuff like that is like when he worked alongside Jean Grey, we saw her kind of throwing people around, lifting people up in the air, and then he would like dive and stab his claws into him and everything like that. Like there's teamwork, you know what I mean? So it feels like there's going to be kind of that dynamic because they have mentioned that there are other heroes that as you go to different locations in the game, you will kind of work alongside them and everything like that. So there will be kind of a teamwork kind of thing. And I'm hoping, really hoping, that this is pushing towards some of the larger Marvel teams kind of getting brought into it. Now, we've seen a lot of stuff already around for the Avengers and stuff like that, so I don't think that Insomniac would touch on that as of quite yet. If anything, I'm thinking we will see stuff like the X-Men and things like that, which have been pretty dead for a long while for like full team kind of style games for the X-Men. We've seen some individual stuff every once in a blue moon. Um, Now, for me, with Insomniac and everything like that, I would love to see Deadpool. Um, I feel that they could handle his comedy and his levity as well as breaking the walls and speaking directly to the person gaming and everything like that. I think that that would be really fun. I think they would be very, very good at it. But on the flip side of that too, I think they could also really well bring the sad aspects to Deadpool's story. Because there is a lot of dark, dark stuff in his story. A lot of loss, a lot of things. And a lot of his levity and ways that he acts and everything like that is his way of handling all the crap he's dealing with. Um, but I also feel that, now that we've seen that they're not afraid to shy away, they're not going to shy away from violent games for their Marvel worlds with Wolverine. I'd love to see that brought into a world with Deadpool. Um, so I feel that they could go a really interesting direction with this, and we could see some really cool like team collaborations with different Marvel characters. I think it could be very cool. Now, moving on. Another one that is being strongly watched by a lot of people. Fable. Fable is really being kind of looked at right now because they took away what people really, really kind of loved about the whole like cosmetic changes and stuff. To me, I don't really give a shit. Honestly, I don't. It was a cool feature, don't get me wrong, but as long as there is an effect based off of how you act that will change how people see you and view you in the game, then that's all I care about. I care about that role play aspect of it changing how people see you, how they interact with you, whether or not people will interact with you. All of that matters to me, and if that is there, then I'm golden. And the fact that they have made it to where you can literally buy every business in the game, you can basically make a monopoly and become super rich. You can buy different homes and everything like that. And this can also have an effect of how people view you in the game, because they can think that you're just some rich snob or that you're some sort of conglomerate or whatever. They'll have differences of opinion on you based off of your actions and things you do. Now, I've also seen some really, really cool things based off of the fact of there was a gameplay reveal where I believe it was one of the developers playing. I can't be positive on that. But anyways, that's not the point. You see him go to a homeless character in the game, and he interacts with him and everything like that, and he was kind to him, and I think he actually gave him a little bit of money and stuff like that. He bought a tavern as a part of a romance quest, because this lady wanted him to be a business owner, have fancy clothes, and then have a home, if I remember right. So he bought a tavern, bought some fancy clothes, needed an extra employee for his tavern. So he went to the homeless man in the game, and Fable, the game, lets you hire him or them, any person, right, to work at his tavern. So in the game, he literally changed this dude's life, right? Because this was a homeless guy that was living on the streets. He was able to go, hey, you now work for me if you want. And the guy accepted, and so he became one of his employees. And so that's the level of thought process they have put into this. Now, and I think I've mentioned this before, combat feels a little too easy for me. And I've seen a lot of people say that combat's always been kind of easy in Fable, and that it's more about the experience and the things you do and whatnot and everything like that. Which is cool and all, but for me personally, I like a little more of a challenge. It doesn't have to be crazy difficult. I'm not saying this has to be like Dark Souls level like difficulty and stuff like that, to where like it's really going to affect you if you you get killed or something. But like, I would like a little challenge. I like a little more challenging gameplay. I like to actually have to feel like I have to strategize as I fight, move around, parry, do whatever, force others into an area of effect and then hit them with a spell or a fire arrow or whatever it happens to be based off of what I'm playing. I love that aspect. And when it's not quite there and I feel like the combat is very secondary to the rest of what you're doing, I feel it loses a little magic for me. So now another one that this is really huge for a lot of people is there's been a lot of talk about Mortal Shell 2. And one of the first things a lot of people bring up is the changing from not having a stamina system in the game. So you can just kind of continuously fight, just fight. Now, I've looked into it. The company said that the reason they did this is because they wanted the combat to just be visceral. You're just in it. These things are like constantly at you, just trying to just kill you. And it's very much just your reactionary thing of how do you survive? Do you get those hits? Do you get those kills? And if you drop and everything like that, then, the utilization of different shells is you can access them and everything like that to keep going. And also having the entity, I always call it the husk. I don't know why. I just always have. But utilizing that, because you can even use that as like a basis to like fight at different points and like that before you get to a different host form and everything like that that changes up your kind of gameplay and your fighting style. So it's got interesting aspects, and I did see a possession of a sheep that was kind of different. Didn't really know what to think of that, so that was a little different. So the other thing that they have added into it is this new kind of fast travel system where it's almost kind of like fiery and you're going through. It's very interesting, very interesting. It's almost like, even though you're not really going into space, it almost feels cosmic because, like, as you're traveling, you see the fire all around you and stuff like that. It's interesting. I don't know. So that's kind of different for me. I really don't know if it's one that I will initially push to play. Here's why. I don't like short games. I hate short games. Now, the combat might stretch it out. It might change the amount of time for certain people because just the challenge of the fighting and stuff like that could ramp it up. Who knows? For me, once I kind of figure out an enemy, it just depends. It depends on how difficult it will be, whether or not it will last, and I feel that it just wouldn't last long enough for me, and I would feel like I just would be throwing away money, honestly, and I felt that before. I didn't do my research, I didn't look into how short certain games were and stuff, and I spent money, and I played, and I was like, well, that was a waste of my freaking time and money, you know? It just, so short. I love games that are longer and have a very dense world to explore and look into. Which is why I'm very mad at Ubisoft, because like I said, I love dense games, and Ubisoft for a little while when they started into their RPGs and stuff like that, I loved Odyssey, I loved Valhalla. When they swapped to this thing that they did with Shadows, I was very, very disappointed. Shadows felt very empty. Very empty. And I was like, you complete it, and they made all these promises, and then they just kind of dumped on their fans. They did one expansion when they promised 3, by the way. I don't know if you guys remember that. They promised 3 expansions. They only gave 1, and they did all these short little additive things. They weren't even really like, they said they were story things and stuff like that. They weren't. They might have been tied to the characters that were a part of it and stuff like that, but some of them were added later, and they were super short. And it just felt like they just totally shat upon everybody who was a fan of the Creed games. Now, pushing forward with talk of Assassin's Creed and Ubisoft. So, Assassin's Creed, this codename Hex, which we don't really know what the officiated title is going to be yet. Because as we've seen, when it was code name, they don't typically stick with whatever the code name was. As we know, I believe Shadows was codename Red, if I remember right. That changed to Shadows. So chances are that this codename Hex, Hexa, whatever you want to say, will change to something else, and it'll have a more officiated title once it gets closer. I keep seeing rumored things that there's going to be more information about the game. It's just rumor. Don't believe that. Don't believe the rumors until there's something more official, guys. Just don't believe it. Till you see something officially drop and there's an officiated trailer and everything like that, chances are we're not going to see anything about it anytime soon. Early things were saying we wouldn't see anything about it until closer to 2030. Now, I believe that'll be closer to 2027's end or 2028. I don't think it'd be all the way out to 2030. It's a really long time, guys. But That also ties into the time frame for what people are thinking for The Witcher 4. A lot of people are thinking end of 2027 to early 2028. I'm not so sure. For me, I'm thinking it's going to be mid 2027. I don't think it'll be end of 2027 into 2028. Here's why. Development is ramping up. They keep getting more and more people. They were already at the cusp right there at 500 that were working on it. They've well surpassed that now. They keep getting more people. And when you have a huge team, it does not take as long to do things because you have more people working on all the different separate aspects instead of a smaller little set of people working on each aspect. So the more people you have, the more shit gets done, right? And so I'm thinking mid 2027 for The Witcher 4. Now, I could be very wrong. Chances are I might be. This could be wishful thinking on my part, who knows? But that's just the gut feeling I have. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if it gets pushed out at end of 2027. Wouldn't be too overly shocking, honestly. But I'm sticking with my guns. I think middle of 2027 we will see about it. We will know about it. And I think we'll start hearing about it here very soon. I do. Things have been very, very quiet. There were a lot of promises given. They were actually supposed to showcase stuff for the Unreal Engine that was being used and worked with to create the world of Witcher 4. Beyond what they had already shown with their little demo thing that they showed a good while back, there was supposed to be more. They were actually supposed to reveal combat and things like that. It didn't happen. They've been staying very quiet. So, now, a lot keeps getting said from different development companies, though, that they're just keeping their heads down. They're working. They're just getting shit done, which is good. Now, another game that didn't get listed in my hashtags for this that I would love to discuss also is Divinity. That one has been... We saw the initial trailer, a reveal trailer. It's very hyped. A lot of people are excited for it because Larian Studios did such an amazing job with Baldur's Gate 3. And there was such fan support and love from that studio that everybody's super excited to see more work from them. Because they did so much for their fans. And they kept making sure that patches and things were released that kept supporting their game. They still do. They still do. Now, they're not major patches like they were initially. Because there was a lot of patches that supported a lot of different things. Allowing, there was like the patch 8 and before that patch 7 and all that did a lot of things for the game. Now they're just small little bug fixes, things like that, if things come across, because with mod support, there's a lot of different little things that have to be done to keep the game running smooth. That's one thing with them. Now, speaking specifically on mods and everything like that, with Baldur's Gate 3, they let the modding community go crazy. Good. Cool. That's awesome. And with console even, there were ones that were thrown on there that were supported by them and everything like that they allowed. Now, a lot of these, of course, come from the PC modding community, so that's why only so many, especially a lot of the strong stuff coming from Nexus and other things like that, are not there. But Larian has said they have learned by combing through and looking at what the modding community did for Baldur's Gate 3 and what they added and what they wanted, because they're looking at the mods and going, oh, so this is what people want. This is what people want to see for character creation, what they can do for their characters and stuff like that. And now they're taking that and they're going, oh, character customization is going to be nuts for Divinity. That's what they want. They are going to throw so much at us initially that they are hoping that that'll satiate people for a good little bit, right? You'll have enough that you can be excited for. And then, of course, you know, as I'm sure they will support modding and everything like that. And when they go and do their next stuff, they'll be looking, okay, what else is there? We gave so much already. Let's see what people were, you know, interested in seeing done and everything like that. And they'll look and they'll go, okay, we can go from here. We can do this. Now, this does make me wonder with creating your characters, the smaller little detail things that people have wanted. Because a lot of people nitpicked about when you're making your character, because there were those nude romantic scenes and stuff like that. They wanted to be able to customize their characters down to the nitty-gritty bits, if you understand my meaning. So, is Larian going to give those options? That is it's a strong question. It is. Because it lets you literally create your character down to the very bits and pieces, if you understand my meaning. And so it is very curious to see what all you will be able to do. And I would love to see differences in how irises can look for your eyes. Differences in pupils. I would love to see a really strong customization on that. If they, you know, with scaled characters, changing how scaling patterns look on your character, which can also affect, you know, when you start changing colors. Like, it could really change how your character looks based off of the layout of scales, how they look on your character, the different colorations. If you have horns or you have like little fin things and things like that, you know what I mean? Did I say fins? You know what I meant. But now, one of the things, and a lot of people have been like, dude, you gotta go back and play them if you haven't. I have not played any of the Divinity stuff. It's not something I've ever played. I actually came into Larian's stuff with Baldur's Gate 3. Now, a lot of people are like, man, you need to go back. You need to play these other things so you have more of what's going on and everything like that. I feel I've been caught up with a lot of what happened based off of interactions, things I've read in Baldur's Gate 3, stuff like that. There's a lot of the history that's there. You get to read it, you get to know it, you get to understand what kind of happened. And also, speaking to Jaheira and Minx, you kind of get a lot more of the background. I'm not saying that that I won't ever do it. I'm a very in the now person. I'm trying to keep up and current. So, for me, I'm curious to see what races they will choose for this game. How many will there be? I kind of felt like in some ways we were really limited. And I hate to say that with Baldur's Gate 3, but I just felt there could be more. And I've always kind of hated that we have, with orcs, they do this half orc. You're never a full-blooded orc. And I'm like, is there a fear of a full-blooded orc? Is it they're too stupid? Are they just too angry? Like, is it this whole thing of they couldn't work well with others kind of thing? Like, I've always wanted that. And for me, I feel that certain things should come into gameplay. Like, if I want to create a character myself, not an origin character, not anything like that, that has vampirism or other things, lycanthropy, whatever, those should be in there. Those should be things that are tied to that type of a thing and should affect how people see you when they learn your secret. I think those should all be aspects of that. Um, I also have heard that in the other Divinity games there were dead characters that had to stay covered and stuff like that, otherwise people would attack you, that were skeletal in nature and stuff like that, that had different resistances to necrotic stuff. I believe they can't be poisoned, things like that, right? And so I feel all those kind of need to be there, and they can push and kind of affect more of a thing with this, because now they know, okay, we've done this, let's add this, let's do this. And I know they're looking really heavily into, okay, how can different things affect your overall gameplay? Larian's very good at that. So, anyways, I'm gonna cut it off here, guys. I've kind of got a little long-winded. I love you. Jack the Stripper out.